with us Toby Simon. He's the president and founder of Synergia Foundation. Synergia Foundation is a Bangalore-based think tank which engages critical issues, geopolitics, geoeconomics, and shape the discussion and debates on critical issues in India and is happening elsewhere across the world. We're going to talk about how Synergia Foundation is making a difference, raising the debate and engagement in this sphere. My first question to you, Mr. Toby, how did you come up with such format? What do you want to achieve out of this?
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you. It's such a pleasure to welcome you to the conclave. The conclave per se is sort of an assimilation of ideas and thoughts over 3 decades. I must mention that the genesis of our work is from the field. We believe that through our interventions in more than 26 countries, 300 interventions, we have impacted the life of more than 100 million people.
Yes.
So that's our genesis.
Yes.
So we just continue the narrative when we have moved from areas of non-traditional security to traditional security, saying we should only get involved where we can make an impact. Now, coming to the conclave, at the end of every conclave, and this is our 7th,
yes,
we look at issues that need attention, and then we keep watching them.
yes,
And the next 18 months, our eyes are focused on areas where we feel there are threats and issues that need a more broadened debate.
yes,
And all this is done with a key stakeholder. It could be
Yes.
with the governments, it could be with intelligence bodies, it could be with the industry. But there is somebody who owns this document.
yes,
What we provide through these debates is a non-partisan conversation.
okay,
And then when we do this non-partisan conversation and we present this to key policymakers, they have a certain element of trust.
yes,
Okay? And this trust is what helps us to communicate further.
yes,
And we don't lobby, we just put it in front of them, and the messaging is done by people who actually take decisions.
yes,
So we stop there. We just put the point out,
yes,
non-partisan, and then we allow them to absorb it. Now, just to conclude, the format of this conclave is the result of our 18 to 22 months of research between 2 conclaves, filtering the most important issues, bringing the key stakeholders here,
yes,
and putting this thought in front of a larger audience so
Yes.
that we can derive
Yes.
better insights.
yes.
That's the whole idea.
Very apt topic, understanding today's scenario when you talk about the future of security and digitization per se, basically, and we as a nation, and of course surrounded by multiple threats. Also, we have threat perception as well. How do you think we are moving towards such digitization as far as the technology is concerned, armed forces are concerned? Could you talk about such ecosystem in India? Where do we now at the moment?
So there is no perfect answer, there is no perfect solution. Digitization improves efficiencies, which is understandable. It brings in a lot of kinetic power, but it is fraught with risk. So it's like a double-edged sword.
Yes.
Okay? The risk is that you're vulnerable. Okay? So if you ask me, is digitization necessary? Yes, it is important. But then we should be extremely mindful of the backside of what we are doing.
Yes.
What Synergia does is to basically expose those backsides to very key group of people. We don't take it public because that creates other problems.
Yes.
And through these interactions, we sort of help them better understand,
Yes.
better assimilate, and then, if needed, we sort of even go ahead and provide some sort of help from an intervention point of view. That's and if I have not completed answering your question, it's a journey we have started, okay, to digitize. Now you can't turn back. Okay?
Yes.
So the question is, way forward, what do you do to make sure that the chain that you're building is resilient, which means
Yes.
you know who has penetrated you quickly,
Yes.
and be able to remediate it at the earliest.
Yes. Mr. Toby, I also understand you focus on the 5G and you sort of, through the Synergia Foundation, raised the debate about the whole 5G. We have a two-side of debate here. One side that talks about the existing infrastructure, which is not catering to such a speed, and other side is, of course, we should not thwart the technology advancement. Let it happen, let it go into the flow. How do you see the dichotomy between taking over the 5G and sorting out the existing infrastructure to the lever? Are ready for that?
So very good question. There are three core elements to this, as I see it. One is the element of technology. Okay? At what level do you want to operate that is compatible with your ecosystem?
Yes.
The second and more important is the security, the end-to-end security, because most of your 5G will go through undersea cables. So starting from the vulnerability of the undersea cables till that it hits your last touch point,
yes,
and then into your computers, you have a huge chain of custody.
Yes.
How do you secure it? Okay, which is so important because 5G will be it's an epochal technology. I mean, it will be generational. Okay, and most of what you do will run through 5G. So if there is a breach,
yes,
for example, the biggest threats could be to your critical infrastructure, to your IoTs. So which means that the real threat can come to your home. It's not in the border of your state or border
yes,
of your, it's inside your home.
Yes.
Which means that people can watch you, what you're
yes,
doing, can see what you're eating, what you're smelling.
Yes.
Which means, you have to be mindful of that.
Yes.
When you talk about. Now, the third is, I spoke over the first two, the third is the use cases. So, you sort of unleash this technology and then find that we don't know how to use it. That the best use would be downloading movies. But, carriers would make money.
Yes.
But what is it for India as a country? Do we make money out of downloading movies? So, industries must be sensitized at the very earliest
Yes.
on the use cases.
Yes.
What do you use this for? So in our conference we showed how a company was using 5G for disaster recovery.
Yes.
Okay, it is using for constructions. It is using in telecommunications. So many use cases. So the idea was basically to open up our eyes and say, hey, if it's 5 of the top companies in India, manufacturing, constructions, whatever.
Yes.
How do you use it? Otherwise, it will be a technology which becomes redundant because we don't have use cases.
Right. So it's a double sword.
It's an opportunity which we should make sure that it's like you buy a Ferrari.
Yes.
You buy a nice Ferrari, but then you see that your roads are all full of potholes, or they're very narrow. How do you drive a Ferrari?
Yes.
Driving a Ferrari per se is not comfortable because you have to sit low.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Mr. Toby, there is an interesting proposition, around the debate is taking place here. You talk about one side about the digitization. You also talk about the security. You understand these are two complementary, but also the interest. There's a conflict here. Say, for example, we talk about the 5G. It's all about the telecom infrastructure. And it's all also attached to the security of our nation, basically. Now there is a whole debate going on. Should we allow the overseas partner to play a vital role, and how should ensure the safety in 5G technology? For example, the case per se, Huawei. What would you like to talk about? How do you like to see?
Yeah, I think collaboration is going to be the new way of living. We have to collaborate. But the choice is on us to decide whom to collaborate, depending on your immediate and long-term national interest. Right? But what is the threat here? The threat basically is that you don't want one single company or one single country
Yes.
to control the supply chain.
Yes.
So what would you do? You would break the supply chain into components,
Yes.
small components. You know what's available in the country, what we can do in probably the next 18 to 24 months.
Yes.
Focus on them. That can ensure that nobody can sort of switch you off. Now there are things that you have to buy from different
That's right.
vendors. Some of the considerations could be political, some could be international relationships, some could be economics. Okay. How would a commercial buyer say no to a company that can offer 360 days credit?
Yes.
Because there's no cash in the market.
And the technology.
And the technology. So we've got to be real with it, and there should be some sort of an architecture that we have. We know what we are buying, where we are buying, whom we are buying. This we call it supply chain traceability.
So how serious is this Chinese theory, which is often alleged on the account of the security concern in India?
You see, there's two things. When you say Chinese, it depends whether the country you're speaking about is a foe or an ally. Okay? I mean, it could be a friendly country and who probably would be, having the same capability to spook on you, but you're not worried. But it is a perception that somebody is an adversary and would be a competitor for you. It could be economic, it could be political, it could be security, that you are afraid. So I think, and all these things keep changing. Over 10, 15 years, you see your friends become foes, your foes become allies, your allies become, keep changing.
The geopolitical change and the shift is everything.
So there can't be one good answer. I think when we take a decision, we just have to look at it, what is in our best interest as of now. We don't know how the future could be. But we must do everything to strengthen ourselves, irrespective of what happens. Even if you have bought, let's say, a component or a part or a service from a country which subsequently becomes an adversary, what do?
That's right.
Okay. So you just make sure that nobody can switch us off, or we control the chain of custody.
Yes.
So some of the most critical things that has to be in the chain of custody is built by us.
Yes.
Some can be bought, and eventually probably you do the research and bring the indigenous capability back into the country.
Yes.
But it is not being nationalistic, it's just being practical.
Yes.
It's not that there are monsters in every country. There are monsters in every company.
Yes.
So we are not looking for the monster, we're just looking what secures us.
Yes.
And for example, countries like in Europe, they work with the company that you mentioned.
Yes.
Because they find it commercially feasible to work. And they see that there is no alternate technology available.
Yes.
So they go ahead and work. Are they fools? No. But they know how to control this.
Yes.
So what the country, we may, if I could recommend is, learn how to control this chain
Yes.
of custody. That's it.
Well,
in any business, it's the same.
Mr. Toby, one of the area which you have worked and your foundation has published a paper on the insurgency situation in India in the case of Chhattisgarh, and which is a very critical question, how to tackle such insurgency in India. There's a long over debate, the right method of doing that, the right amount of parliamentary forces or armed forces. What can we do about it? What your paper talks about?
It's a very deep subject, and we have been, as a think tank, working in a number of conflict resolutions around the world, and we see the same pattern. You have disaffected people, you have people who feel there is no future, and somebody comes in to feed on that, creates a market. Okay? And at the end, you find that the larger interest of people who play this is money, power, but the people who suffer are those people who get in between.
Yes.
And for them, it's about jobs.
Yes.
It's about having a daily livelihood, and most important, dignity, and a hope to live. If you take away this from any human being, his whole behavior pattern changes, and then you can call him Naxal, you can call him Maoist,
Yes.
but once you rob somebody of his right to live, and he is convinced that the mistake is not his, but it is of something external, a state, a country, another group of people, then they start behaving differently.
Yes.
So our whole recommendation was you really need to tackle this from the bottom. Easier said than done. But otherwise there is no solution, because
Yes.
you cannot take a stick and solve a problem like this.
Yes. Coming back to the topic of our defense and security, And on the aspect, indigenization in the mind, everywhere you go, the debate is inherently everywhere. And so you also talk about the defense and aerospace and ecosystem in this country. We want to build up our own machine and hardware and aircraft. We have not been done that for so many years. Mostly our defense public sectors are way behind, the target and technology capability. How do you look at the situation now?
I think there's been tremendous improvement in the last few years. With more collaborative effort from the public sectors and the private sectors coming, companies are able to access better technologies. Of course, there are concerns of IP, etc. But I think what is most heartening is there is a serious feeling that we need to do this, that we cannot, for our own security, depend on supplies from global sources. Because what happens if some relationships goes wrong, there is a misunderstanding, you don't want to be stuck. Okay, so you assume there are no permanent friends, no permanent foes. Then what's your doctrine? Your doctrine is basically saying how best you can build your own capability, make sure that it is economical by scaling up, which means maybe selling overseas, and creating a platform which again makes you stand on your own feet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mrs. Toby, at Synergia Foundation, how do we see that, if you see coming down the line for 5 years, evolving into a global platform for debate and discussion on certain issues? What are the areas you would like to focus on and see this evolving down the line?
Good question again. See, we will keep changing, because depending on what we feel is the most critical 2 or 3 or 4 issues that affect human security. So last year nobody spoke about 5G. Suddenly you have this huge debate about 5G.
Yes.
So we will look at issues. We will look at, tomorrow it could be food. Day after it could be agriculture. Okay? So our foundation is wired to the ground. So we don't sit up and look like this. We are on the floor looking at issues.
Yes.
We have sensors in most parts of the world, so we see patterns emerging. And our whole approach is to see how we can provide a futuristic perspective, 3 to 5 years back best, of threats, challenges, and then seeing how these challenges, if it can be made into an opportunity.
Yes.
Okay? So it's not only looking defensive, but also looking if we can find an opportunity where companies, governments can create an arbitrage.
Yes.
So that will be the modus operandi, and this is how over the last 20 years we have looked at issues like pandemics, supply chain security, counterfeiting as a national security, building resilient cities, cybersecurity. All this much before people started speaking about it.
Yes.
We spoke about avian flu in 2006-07, and a few months later it started hitting in Asia.
Yes.
So we feel the value of a think tank is 2 things. One, it's intent. What are you here for? Are you here to make money, or are you here to play politics? Okay. Either one you do, there are issues. I'm not making a judgment.
Yes.
So your intent must be clear.
Yes.
Your credibility must be very high.
Yes.
Yeah? And when you have these 2, people probably begin to read you that you have a different mindset.
Yes.
So this cannot be advertised.
Yes.
It will come with time, or it will never come.
Thank you, Mr. Toby Simon is a man behind the Synergia Foundation, far from the Luton's Delhi and South Block, in the heart of digital capital of India, we call Bangalore. He is the man behind so many debates and critical issues that affect India on the security, on the digitization, and so many more. I wish him good luck. See Synergia Foundation evolving into a more greater credible platform for all of us to come here, debate, and find a solution for the emerging India. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to see you.
Same here.
Yeah.